What would a $1 trillion vacuum do to the markets and the economy? That's what we're going to discuss here and now. In the previous video to this, I discussed the Treasury Cash Balance. I'll make sure there's a link in the description so that we can be on the same page. But that Treasury Cash Balance is extremely important for the government to be able to pay all of the necessary things. And just like you have a checking account, there's a Treasury Cash Balance. So if this were to deplete, that would create a big mess, a big problem. And in this video, we'll look at this, specifically paying attention to why a surge of new treasury bonds could be hitting the market. Let's look into it. The debt ceiling and the new bonds. Quick recap, you had Biden signing a new debt ceiling deal into law. What does it mean? Well, the US Treasury is about to flood the market with new bonds. They're calling it a tsunami of bonds, and it's a move to refill the government's coffers quickly. But here's a catch. Wall Street is warning that the markets aren't ready for this influx. This is a drain on liquidity. You might ask, why is this a problem? Like, why would that be an issue? Well, the issue lies with liquidity, which is the amount of money freely available on the markets. This wave of new bonds could end up being a huge drain on the already shrinking liquidity. Remember, quantitative tightening. They are selling off, the Federal Reserve is selling off their mortgage-backed securities and their treasuries. They are already engaging in that, and this is basically a reduction in the liquidity in the system. Now you can have others, for instance, foreign companies, foreign investors. You could have, domestic as well, corporations. All of these things could fill that void, but with added pressure, it becomes difficult. So you gotta picture something here. A vacuum sucking up the available cash as it's used to pay for these bonds. This could potentially knock a significant amount off of the performance of stocks and bonds. Totally speculation, but that could be a very short-term result. What we're talking about here is a big number, okay? A drop in liquidity by over $1 trillion. That's not something that we see often. It's only in severe financial crises, like 2008 and so on, that we see contractions like this. This surge in bonds will rumble through every asset class and decrease the supply of money in circulation. Then what does this mean, though, for the average person? And so this is where we get to the next step. But understand that when you do this, because they have to fill up that Treasury cash balance, they have to do this. It was basically at zero. So they're going to do it, and it's going to create an issue temporarily at least. As this tsunami of bonds rolls out, different players will react in their own way. Banks might not want these treasury bills, as the yields might not compete with what they can get on their own reserves. Remember, they may like to keep their money at the Federal Reserve and do things that way. But if the clients shift out of deposits and into treasuries, it could create a big problem. Citigroup has warned that this could lead to a headwind. On the other hand, non-banks like your households, pension funds, corporate treasuries will turn up at these treasury auctions, possibly freeing up the cash for their purchases by liquidating bank deposits. So this we will only know in time, but this is happening right now as we speak. Here's the thing. Historically, when there's a downturn in bank reserves, stocks fall and credit spreads widen. Even with all of the excitement around things like AI driving this bull market, you can see Nvidia stock, other stocks, these underlying liquidity issues could undermine that growth. This is what I talk about with the money mirror method. And in that video I did recently, only got a couple thousand views. It's important to watch this because I showed you the reserves, and it was directly matching or mirroring what we see in the markets. So if the expectation is that that would decline, what happens with the markets? It's not the most comforting news for those people who are, let's say, heavily exposed to, the biggest risk on assets. That is an issue, of course. So when you drain $1 trillion or vacuum $1 trillion out of the markets, this is going to create an issue. It has a knock-on effect or a domino effect. And that's really what this is all about. So here we talked about the Treasury cash balance, the debt ceiling. We looked at why it's important for investors as well as, just anybody out there. If the government needs to fund their everyday businesses, well then that means that they have to do this in this way. It's not like they can avoid it. And just because it's coming all at once, that's where we encounter the issue. If it happened over a period of a year or something, well then, different story. But this is going to happen rather rapidly, and I'm interested to see what happens. If you want to pay attention very closely at all of the details, simply hit that subscribe down below so I can bring you each and everything every single day. And if you want to watch what the Treasury cash balance is in further detail, make sure you click this link, and I'll see you on the next one. Take care.